This morning, we're going to do a panel discussion with some of the senior student leaders here at King's. They're going to be sharing, hang on. I'll give you guys a chance to applaud in just a second. They're going to be sharing their experiences, their time here at King's, and just some of their own thoughts as far as faith, leadership, life, friendships. All right, and so I'm going to introduce table by table. So once I'm done introducing all of them, you can go ahead and give a big round of applause for all of them. So just 1 second. You guys love applauding, okay? So, all right. You're just so excited. Okay, so starting on the very end, we have Townsend and Ryan. And then in the middle here, we have Mason and Gaby. On this end, we have Cristina and Rachel. Yeah, now you guys can give a big round of applause for all of them. All right, shh. So we're going to be having a conversation, discussing some questions. They're going to be sharing their thoughts. I do want to ask that this takes a lot of courage for these students to get up in front of all of you guys. It is daunting to stare out at all of you guys. And so I just ask that you guys be respectful of each of them and picture yourself up here in their shoes and how you would want others to treat you during this time, okay? So to start off, I'm going to kick it over to Mason and Gaby. They're going to lead us off in our first question, which is on leadership. Obviously, all of you guys are up here because you hold a leadership role at King's. And so I'm sure there are a lot of students out here that want to be in a leadership role when they get to maybe senior year. So in your guys' opinion, how would you suggest that they start preparing now for a leadership role at King's?
Okay. So the first thing is I would make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, because I know it's really common to just do stuff to put it on your resume, to get into college and all that stuff, but make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, because if you don't have a passion for it and you don't actually want to do it, then it's not going to end up well. Like, you're not going to do a very good job at it, and you're not going to have fun with it. And so the second thing for me is start preparing while you can. So for like the freshmen and the sophomores, if you've never held like a leadership position yet and you want to do one senior year, maybe start by running for officer in like one of your clubs to kind of get some experience leading and like dealing with people and stuff. And if you're a junior, and I know those applications are coming out soon, if you've really never done anything leadership-wise and you're thinking about doing it and you feel really called to do it, just go for it, because a lot of times you don't know until you try. So a lot of times people are really good at it and they don't realize until it's too late. So start preparing while you can, and if not, just go for it.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback off of what she said. So you want to ask yourself some questions, like what are your reasons, what are your intentions? Ask the people who are around you if you're fit for a position, or what you're going for. Maybe it's a team captain, or maybe it's student council or prefect. And you have to be, leadership is all about building relationships and being transparent with those relationships to run whatever you're doing effectively. So when I think about some of the great leaders in our world, I think of the best president ever, Mr. Martin. Yeah. Yeah, you guys thought I was gonna go there. Okay. And Mr. Martin's he's my advisory leader, and he's super transparent on how the school works and how it runs, and he's even transparent in his own life with some of the relationships that he has in his life. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just building relationships and being transparent with those relationships.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And I'm going to throw the next question over to Ryan. So you guys know with leadership comes great responsibility, but also some amazing experiences. So Ryan, maybe share with us some of the lessons you've learned along the way from the various leadership positions that you've held.
Yeah, when I came into 9th grade and I started applying for leadership positions, I think my intentions were not necessarily in the right place. I thought of leadership as being the boss or being the top, I guess. But being a leader, I've learned, does not mean being better in any way. Your intention in becoming a leader is so important. And so kind of going off of what Mason and Gaby are saying, make sure that you examine your own heart when you are applying for these leadership positions, and make sure that you're you're looking to serve and not just get some kind of perks or something to put on your college resume. And so I think the number one thing I would say that I've learned as a leader is that in order to be an effective leader, you need to strive to be more like Christ in everything you do.
Now, obviously, when it comes to you guys' roles as prefects, you don't just become a prefect by accident. And one of the requirements to be a student leader at King's is you have to show evidence of your faith. And so let's talk a little bit about faith in your guys' own lives and how you maybe grow in your faith. So Townsend, I'm going to kick it over to you. What would you say as far as some practical steps and how they can grow in their faith?
Yeah, for sure. Growing your faith is really the most important thing in your life. Growing in your relationship with the Lord is the most important thing. To really develop that relationship with the Lord and to develop that faith, you really need to have communication with God. The biggest thing is, of course, prayer. That's us communicating with God and speaking to Him, and God communicating to us through His Word. Now, those are so important, but I think something that's overlooked constantly is surrounding ourselves with other believers. All these prefects here have been such a great support to me, and I've tried my best to support them. And through that, we're able to really grow in our faith and lean on them, I'm able to lean on them when I'm going through difficulties, and they're able to lean on me, and I'm able to support them. And we're not meant to live this life alone. We're meant to live it with fellow believers. And when you're surrounding yourself with people that are strong in your faith, you become more like that. I think 180 in Group 316, that's a place where people want to really grow in their faith and strive to know the Lord better. And by me personally going into that, I've been able to grow in my faith a ton too. So I think that's the most important thing, is surrounding yourself with Christ-centered people. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Rachel and then Gabby, you guys also want to talk a little bit about some practical ways to grow in your faith? Go ahead, Rachel, you can kick it off.
Hello? Does it work? Okay, so another way that you could grow your faith is if you get an opportunity to go on a missions trip. That's a great way to do so. A few years ago, I went to England for a missions trip, and I was able to see Europe from a different perspective, and it's such a beautiful place. And my team was able to do a variety of ministry. We were able to serve at a camp called Camp of Champions, where we were able to go to a school and help the kids afterwards and just play games with them. We were able to share the gospel with them over a few days, so that was really special. But you don't necessarily have to go on a mission trip to serve. You can find opportunities in like church, your community, or here at school.
Okay, awesome. So something that you kind of touched on, Townsend, was just being in God's Word and this idea of talking with God. So on this idea of prayer, maybe Cristina, could you talk to us a little bit about the purpose of prayer and why it's so important for us to be doing that consistently?
So I think the purpose of prayer is really just building a relationship with God. A lot of times I feel like we kind of get confused and we think that prayer is more like asking for things, because that's usually how we start prayer, like, can I have a good day? Can I get a good grade on this test? And we were actually talking about this in Mr. Stewart's class today, how we always treat God like a genie and asking him for things, but that's not the true purpose of prayer. The purpose of prayer is just building that relationship with God, and it doesn't actually have to be asking for things. I know that I take the time to just kind of talk with God, even though maybe I'm not thanking him or maybe I'm not asking for something, but I just tell him, oh, I'm frustrated with this that's happening in my life, or I'm really happy about this that's going on in my life. And that just kind of builds your relationship. It brings you closer to him, because that's what Christianity is all about.
And as we're talking about kind of these practical steps to grow in our faith, prayer, reading the Bible, those sometimes in our mind, it can sound like more things added to our to-do list per week. Now, I know a lot of you guys, if not all of you guys, have so many things that you guys are involved in, whether it's sports or conservatory or extracurricular activities. And so this idea of, okay, now I have to add more things to my weekly schedule. Ryan, what would you suggest for kind of how do we make God a priority in our lives, given all the other commitments that all these students have on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I think the number one way, and no, I don't think anyone would like this answer, but is getting up earlier. I think if you give the first 30 minutes of your day to God, He'll bless the rest of your day. So for me personally, I set an alarm for 25 minutes earlier than I need to get up. And I'm not perfect. There's days where I totally ignore that alarm. But I think doing things like that, even just setting a reminder on your phone to spend time with God or to pray, they remind us to stop what we're doing, even in our busy schedule, and spend time with God. And I think, of course, we could ignore these reminders if we don't have the motivation or will, like sometimes I don't. So I think it's also important that we have accountability partners, someone who can hold you accountable and someone that you can hold accountable. For example, my youth pastor, I send him a verse every morning, and he sends me one. So doing things like that helps you to be held accountable for spending time with God, but also if you take that discomfort of getting up a little bit earlier, I think God sees that and he blesses you for that.
And I know we talked about this idea of being in community with fellow believers and how important that is. And I think one of the practical ways we can do that is when we're plugged into a local church. So maybe, Rachel, do you want to share about what's a practical way or practical ways that we can find a good church for us?
I would say you should definitely learn more about the church members by actually going and visiting the church. You can ask yourself these questions like, is the pastor teaching directly from the Bible? Are the leaders wanting to get to know you personally? What do you think of the student ministry? And did you feel welcomed and connected as a visitor? Oh, what about the worship? What did you think of that? So those are several of the many factors you might want to consider before committing to a church.
One of the biggest parts of finding a church community is finding those people that you can do life with. And much of middle school, high school is finding that group of friends that you can count on, that you can trust on, and that whether you're having a great day or whether you're having the worst day, you can go to them. So let's talk a little bit about friendships and some advice to students as far as how do they really find a group of friends that they can trust and that's a good group of friends. So Rachel, I'm going to come back to you. What effect do friendships have on how they ought to live their life?
Friendships have absolutely huge influences on your life. A famous quote I heard is, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future." And I think it's really important because friends can either lead you in the right or the wrong direction. Say if you want to be successful in life, you can't surround yourself with people who value drugs or alcohol more than school or work or education. And friends' words and actions will be reflected by you eventually.
Great. So, Cristina, knowing how important friendships are, how do you find the right group of friends?
I think the best way to find a good group of friends is just getting involved with things that you're interested in or that you enjoy. That's how you're going to find people with the same interests as you. I know that I met most of my best friends doing like theater and other activities like that. And just finding a group of people that support you and make you grow as a person rather than drag you down. And just knowing that you're finding people that make you feel uplifted rather than like you're being dragged down.
And for many students, maybe they might be looking at their friend group right now, saying in their mind, okay, I know I might be in the wrong group of friends. And so, Gaby, first, what are some red flags that might indicate, like, hey, I think I'm part of the wrong crowd here? But then, second, what would you recommend for that student or those students of how would they kind of graciously and wisely switch friend groups?
Okay, so I kind of have like two main red flags. And my first one is when everything becomes a competition in the friend group. So like, I'm not saying my friends do this in any way, but this is just an example. So let's say you're like, I don't know, texting in your group chat that you just got into your dream school, like exciting, whatever. And then your friend's response is bringing up that they got into a more prestigious or a better school. You know, it's like that type of stuff where it's like, it's not in like a funny or a playful way. It's more in like a, I want you to know that I'm better than you, and that's why you can stay in this friend group. That's a real big red flag. And then my second red flag is when they make fun of you for the things you like or for your goals. So like Cristina said, like your friends should support you and not drag you down. So if your friends are like making fun of you for your goals, you're not going to feel like motivated to keep working on your goals because there's no positive energy surrounding it. And then to switch friend groups, I know this is like a really common answer, but I think the easiest way is to just like reach out, like even something as small as like Group 316, like it'll help you meet more people with strong faith and more people to encourage you. And my biggest advice is to don't be dramatic about it. Like, it's not going to get you anywhere except dig you into a deeper hole if you're making a whole drama and then the whole grade knows that like this happened and that happened. Like, just make it a smooth transition and don't affect too many people by it. Just be nice about it and pray about it, and God will place you where he needs you to be.
So it's important for us to think about having healthy friendships. It's also very important for us to think about having healthy relationships. And so I'm going to kick it down to our relationship expert, Mr. Mason over there. And he's going to, hey, you signed up for this one, so I'm expecting big things, all right? So relationships. Obviously, in high school, okay, there's relationships going on. And so what would you say, Mason, for some tips as far as engaging in a very healthy, God-honoring relationship in maybe even middle school, but high school too?
Doesn't count. No, I'm kidding. So a little bit about my relationship. I started dating this girl my sophomore year here. Literally the day before COVID happened, March 12th. And then COVID happened. I didn't see her for a month. And she was a senior in high school at the time. So now she's in college. She's in her second year. And it's hard because, she's so far away. And, you have to there's like 3 major pillars in pretty much any relationship. You have to be a really good communicator. You have to be really transparent with yourselves. And you have to have great accountability in your relationship. And those, if any of those things are a little like off, it's gonna affect you in the long run. And then if you are trying to go in the long run, this is mainly, let's see if I can word this right. So you wanna look at their parents and see what example they're modeled after. Like if their parents, if they grew up with, like if their parents have struggled in their relationship, they might have a twisted view of what a relationship is. So that's a big deal. There's a guy in my life, and he mentors me, and he told me that, and it kind of made me think. I was like, yeah, that's gonna affect you in your life in the future if you're trying to go in the long run. He's like, yeah, something I should have done is looked at her parents or whatever. It's funny, but some of you adults might know that. But and then another big thing is don't go into the relationship thinking that you're able to change that person for what you want. That's a really big thing, and that's hard in high school because we have this picture-perfect, relationship, and, just things go wrong with that. And then if things aren't working out, know when to let go, because it gets hard at times because a lot of people are, like, scared to break up because they're, like, wondering what people will think around them. Like they're going to think, like, just all these things, like, in your friend groups and stuff. And that gets messy, too. So that's pretty much all I have to say, yeah. And Gaby has some stuff.
So another thing that I'm going to add is just make sure you're like right with God first, because obviously we all know that like Jesus loves us. And I feel like if we've experienced and we know the love of Jesus, we'll know how to love on others better. So also kind of like analyze that in your boyfriend or girlfriend and your partner, whatever. Like if they've also experienced the love of Jesus, they'll know how to love on you better. So if you have a partner who maybe does not share the same faith as you, like on what basis is their love? Like what is their foundation for loving you? It's just kind of like you want to make sure they're loving on you in the right way, and I feel like Jesus is a great example for that.
Yeah. So oftentimes in relationships, there's highs and lows, and I think in all of life in general, there's good moments and there's bad moments. It can sometimes feel like a roller coaster. So maybe Townsend, would you speak to us when you're going through the hard times in life, when you're going through a hardship? There may be students right now going through just a hard time. How would you encourage them to maybe get through it? What practical things can they do?
Yeah, for sure. I know for me personally, I've struggled with knowing what to do during hardships. I haven't really learned this, or I've recently just learned this year of the best way to deal with it. And when I was going through those hardships earlier in high school and middle school, I began to be really frustrated at God when those trials came about, and I began to question him. That was something I did, and during this year, the start of the senior year, I was going through some difficulties, and I began to go through that same process of questioning God. But then I remember reading in James chapter 1, it says, "Consider it pure joy when trials arise." That's a pretty hard thing to do, is consider trials pure joy. But earlier this year, when I went through that trial, I was able to realize that when I was going through those hardships, I wasn't doing the right things. I wasn't trusting in God to help me in those times. I wasn't leaning on him. I wasn't leaning on others. So that's the most important thing to do, is really lean on others and trust in him that there's a greater purpose behind those difficulties. Many times it is in those difficulties, it is in those trials where our character really develops and our character strengthens, and we're able to build a relationship better with God and a relationship better with others. Because, like I said earlier, like this life, we're not meant to live it alone. We're meant to live it with fellow believers and support others. And through my difficulties, through my hardest times, I've been able to develop so much stronger friendships and relationships with God. So, yeah, that's...
When you get to like the end of the road, senior year, all of you guys are kind of looking on to the next thing. The goal sometimes in high school is, okay, I want to get to the end with like no regrets, right? So I want to live high school to its fullest. What would you guys say to your freshman year self, if you could, to kind of give yourself some advice, some encouragement? What would you say to kind of you as a freshman starting off high school? Ryan, we'll start with you.
I think the first thing I would say to myself is that there's no reason to be intimidated or afraid to reach out to others. Everyone is insecure. Everyone has something that they're insecure about. And high school is really just one big popularity contest that everyone is losing. So there's no reason to be so afraid to talk to people. Gaby Bueno, when I met her, I was super intimidated by her. She was super confident. She knew everyone. And I would never approach her in 9th grade. But when she approached me and she was super kind, I realized how ridiculous that was. And Gabby's actually one of my good friends now, because strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. So reach out to the people around you. And I know.
Ryan, you're going to end up on Twitter later. That's a tweet right there.
It's a good quote, yeah. But reach out to the people.
That was a pretty good segue. What I would tell where are the freshmen? Okay, thank you guys. I know where to look now. What I would tell my freshman year self is that, one, it'll all be okay, which Ms. Sparks was telling me to quote by Shawn Mendes earlier. And it's not a big deal. So freshman year is like hard. I remember one of the biggest things I remember it was actually the end of 8th grade it was the beginning of 8th grade, which I was taking a freshman year class. It was Miss Urso's algebra class. And I remember everyone saying, your grades are going to count now. College is going to see this. And I was like, I'm in 8th grade. Like, you can't be telling me that. And now looking back, I'm like, it's really not a big deal that first semester of algebra I didn't get the grade I want, or just my friend group is whatever. Like, it's really not a big deal. Looking back, like 3 or 4 years after, I look back at freshman year, I'm like, there were so many things that like I could have done differently, but because of all the drama and all the stuff, everything was like, freshman year was really tense. So if you just like don't let it be so tense and kind of make the right choices and for the right reasons and all that stuff, it'll make you not have to regret or worry so much about your freshman year looking back into it. And I won't, like, if I would have done a lot of things differently my freshman year, I wouldn't look back at it as, oh, I should have thought that wasn't a big deal. I would have thought like, oh, like this is great, freshman year's fun, and I would have just remembered it good instead of tense, if that makes any sense.
So for the freshmen, I would say that you should make friends with your teachers. The teachers here are amazing, and they're super nice, super easy to talk to, and a lot of them give really good advice. It's really nice to have someone else at school other than like your friends or your parents that you can just come to with your problems and just kind of unload, and they're there to listen to you and just take advantage of the opportunity to be able to learn from someone that's older and that's lived more life than you have, because they always give good advice and they always make you feel uplifted.
So we just have a few minutes left. So this question is not on your papers, but it's pretty simple, okay? So for each of you guys, just go one by one, Townsend. Maybe we'll start with you at that end, all right? Sorry, put the pressure on, man. I'll try to stall to give you time. What would be your biggest takeaway from your time at King's? It could be in any one of these categories. It could be faith, friendships, life, leadership. What would be kind of your biggest takeaway leaving King's? You're saying, man, when I look back at my time at King's, I am super grateful for whatever it is. Townsend?
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from King's is just the Christian education, the Christian values that are instilled in us. I know, especially not many schools are having Bible studies every Friday morning, nights of worship. My greatest memories are those nights of worships and Bible studies and really coming together with fellow believers and growing in my faith. I think since I was really, really young, the place I was there in my faith to now has been grown so much in my faith. And I think that is the greatest thing. And being able to meet so many people that have supported me in my faith and helped me grow, and the great teachers that have done that as well, I think that's going to be the greatest thing. It's really the people and developing my relationship with the people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a hard question to answer because there's so many great things that I've experienced in the past 4 years. But I would say something similar to Townsend is the people that I've met here. Lots of you sitting right here have just impacted my life in a way that I never expected. Going from a middle school where there was 20 kids or something in my grade, so I didn't know that many people. And then coming to a place like this where I've met so many great people who are encouraging and help me grow in my faith. And I think of teachers like Mrs. Martin or Mr. Parenti who have kind of been there to guide me along the way and encourage me. So I'm just thankful for that experience.
So I'd say the biggest takeaway about my experience here are the teachers and the administration. These are some of the best teachers, like, in the state of Florida. I promise you that. Like, I hear so many stories with my friends in public schools, like, their teachers don't care. They don't teach them. Like, we really have it great here when we have, coaches that come in the morning to improve us, or like, I played pickleball with Mr. Dickens the other day. Like it's just teachers here, like, love us, and it's just amazing to see that.
So I was going to say people, but they kind of both said that. So I'm going to say opportunities, because a lot of times it's like, for a lot of us, like, we've been here for a few years now, and it's easy to just like overlook the amount of opportunities we have. But I think my biggest takeaway is like learning to take advantage of all these opportunities. Like, we have like a ton of programs of distinctions that'll like help us learn. We have a bunch of clubs that'll help us grow in our faith, a bunch of teachers that care about us. Like, take every opportunity you get, because a lot of times you don't find them elsewhere.
My biggest takeaway would probably have to be the relationships and friendships that I've made as well. I've made friendships here that are going to last a lifetime. And I've made relationships with teachers and other people that have helped me grow as a person and helped me grow in my faith, and I'm really thankful for that.
My biggest takeaway is honestly the Christian education and the staff and the different teachers here who have made a big impact in my life. And one of the most impactful leaders her name is Coach Gina Proscia, and she has been the most encouraging leader in my life. She has been always wanting to push me physically and to become stronger in my faith. So yeah, she has definitely made my swim journey better.
Hey, can we give a big round of applause to all of our students that shared today? Hey, before I dismiss, I'm going to pray for you guys, for these students, and then I'll dismiss. All right, so let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. God, we thank you for these 6 students and how you've blessed them, their experiences here. Lord, I pray that you'd help all of these students take to heart what's been shared today. Lord, allow us to be grateful for a place like King's. Lord, grow our faith and help us to see you more clearly each day. We give you thanks and praise. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.